What is urban area? Urban area is a human settlement with high population density and infrastructure of built environment. Urban areas are those human settlements that have a high population density and built-up features compared to the surrounding areas. In particular, cities refer areas in which large numbers of people gather and reside, resulting in a very high population density, or as economic, political, and cultural centers, and the focal point of major traffic routes. Urbanization is a systematic change or shift of population, economy, geographic aspects, and is a process of complex system development/formation. Urbanization is the gradual shift of relative populations from rural to urban areas. Levels of urbanization are measured crudely by the percentage of population residing in urban areas, and the rate of urbanization as the percentage increase in urban population. 1.1 Main causes of urbanization. The increasing levels of urbanization and urban growth identified are the result of a combination of natural increase of the urban population and net in-migration to urban areas. Main causes of urbanization. 1. Migration is the movement of population from one area to another. Some migrations are forced, voluntary, permanent and temporary, international and regional. The major reasons for this movement can be classified into push and pull factors. A push factor is something that can force or encourage people to move away from an area. Push factors can include famine, drought, flooding, a lack of employment opportunities, population growth and overpopulation, and civil war, as in Darfur at the moment. A pull factor is one in which encourages people to move to an area. Pull factors include the chance of a better job, better access to education and services, and a higher standard of living. These factors have contributed to creating mass urbanization in LDCs, less developed countries. 2. Natural increase of population. Natural increase also has a major effect on rates of urbanization. During the initial urbanization phase, natural increase in poorer parts of the world can increase as death rates fall in cities as people have better access to medical care, improved water supplies, sanitary conditions. Improved wealth, so improved food supply. 3. Economic development. Regional differences in rates of urbanization throughout the world provide clear evidence of the relationship between urbanization and industrialization. Prior to the Industrial Revolution, urban development was restricted by the amount and value of surplus product that could be generated and accumulated in a single place. The low level of economic growth imposed a ceiling on the number of people who could be sustained in urban places. There is a positive relationship between level of economic development and urbanization condition, and that is why the degree is higher for economically developed national. Economic growth relates to the movement of people out of agricultural communities into other and generally larger non-agricultural communities. In other words, urbanization is seen as a product of increasing economic specialization and advancing technology. Specializations necessitate the accumulation of people, and this is the process of urbanization. 4. Political and social change. It is generalized that economic development, like industrialization, caused urbanization to grow. Different studies, however, suggest the significance of political and social change which in the developing world has generated urbanization without industrialization. Urbanization in third world countries and developed nations is not the same, not only the way, but also the rate at which urbanization is growing. In many cases, the most active process is the penetration of a peasant society into a capitalist system, and this induces a geographic mobility without social mobility. Key terminology in urban studies. Urban growth is an increase in the absolute size of an urban population. This could be at the level of an individual settlement or a collection of settlements, e.g. at the national level. The pace of urban population growth depends on the natural increase of the urban population and the population gained by urban areas through both net rural-urban migration and the reclassification of rural settlements into cities and towns. Approximately 55% of the world's population lives in urban areas. This is expected to increase to 66% by 2050. The highest rates of urban growth are expected in low and middle-income countries. Urban development is the social, cultural, economic, and physical development of cities, and the underlying causes of these processes. Urban expansion refers to an increase in the built-up area of a settlement or collection of settlements, e.g. at the national level. Urban sprawl. Horizontal spreading or dispersed urbanization. The uncontrolled and disproportionate expansion of an urban area into the surrounding countryside, forming low-density, poorly planned patterns of development. Common in both high-income and low-income countries, urban sprawl is characterized by a scattered population living in separate residential areas, with long blocks and poor access, often overdependent on motorized transport and missing well-defined hubs of commercial activity. Peri-urban area is an area between consolidated urban and rural regions. Managing urban growth is one of the defining challenges of the 21st century, particularly in the poorest and most fragile countries where municipal capacity is weakest. Urban planning and management particularly important today as more than one-half of the world's population now resides in urban places. Cities, towns, and other urban forms are therefore the sites for most of mankind's activities. Yet in most cities and towns, land and access to basic resources and services are usually scarce and unevenly distributed. What is region? A regional area defined as wide areas that encompass both urban and rural areas. Region means a tract of land, any area, a portion of Earth's surface which has similar character. There are two aspects of region: 1, spatial dimension objective reality, e.g. altitude, soil; 2, non-spatial dimension subjective idea mental construct spaceless, e.g. culture, political, etc. What is urban, town, planning? Town planning is the art and science of organizing land use and siting of buildings and communication routes to provide best possible degree of economy, beauty, and convenience in terms of the available resources and time. It is the organization of all elements of a town or other urban environment. Town planning integrates land use and other managerial aspects of settlements to improve the economic and social environments of communities and achieving health, beauty, convenience, preservation, and sustainability. What is regional planning? Regional planning is the science of efficient placement of land use activities, infrastructure, and settlement growth across a larger area of land than an individual city or town for the sustainable growth of a region. Regional planning is a combination of two words. These are region and planning. Planning is a general activity and region is an area within which this activity is pursued. The need for regional planning: it is used to accelerate the growth capability in any region, achieve economic growth; it is used to increase employment, to reduce problem of unemployment; it is used to achieve equitable income distribution among people in a region, to avoid income inequality; it maintains balance of development between regions, to reduce disparity in regions. Regionalization is a process of delineating, forming, regions. In other words, it is the process of dividing an area into smaller segments called regions. This process may take several forms depending on the purpose of regionalization, the criteria to be used, and data availability. One of the more obvious examples of regionalization is the division of a nation into states or provinces. These regions are formed on the basis of certain criteria to fulfill certain desired objectives. 1.3 Regional planning and the management of regional development. Growth and development. Growth is the change in quantitative amount per capita income, GDP, but development goes beyond that. Economic development is the change in qualitative term, while economic growth is a quantitative term, as the increase in the quantity or volume of a thing denotes its growth. Therefore, if a country's output, national income, per capita income, consumption, savings, and investment increase, such phenomenon represents growth. Development is a goal that is going to be achieved, and this goal is dynamic, changeable. When we consider development as a goal, it is to mean that it has to bring about socio-economic and political changes to society. For instance, before 1960, the goal of development in Africa, world, focuses on economic growth, such as income, finance, etc. The idea is to increase income and bring modernization. After 1960, the focus of development shifted from economic to socio-political perspective. This is because urbanization and industrialization later on accompanied by social problems like crimes, conflict, injustice, marginalization, etc. Thus, since then, development is started to be seen in broadened or integrated manner. Regional development is a broad term but can be seen as a general effort to reduce regional disparities by supporting employment and wealth generating economic activities in regions. It aims at the process of social, economic, and political changes at subnational level. The socio-economic and political changes are manifested through high level of income, employment, living standard, etc. Regional development is more of area-focused, oriented, and is multisectorial in nature. 1.4 Inter- and intra-regional planning. A. Inter-regional planning, national planning. It deals with overall national planning to promote socio-economic development of the nation. It solves the problem of interregional allocation of tasks, the problem how to outline the role of each region in the formulation and implementation of national objectives. B. Interlocal, intraregional planning. It is done at region, state level. It has to be developed within the institutional framework of state government. Depending on the social, economic, and political structure of the state, the interlocal planning agency formulates different objectives for socio-economic development. 2. Economic theories and regional growth. Economic base analysis describes all productive activity in terms of two categories. There are basic or export, or non-local, activities which sell in export markets and bring additional employment and revenue into the local area. And there are non-basic or service, or local, activities whose output is consumed totally within the local area. The importance of economic base analysis is in its ability to identify those basic or export sectors of a local economy that will bring growth, in terms of revenues and employment, into the local area. This exogenous expansion will in turn cause local service sectors to expand and prosper in accordance with the multiplier concept of regenerative expansion. A. Basic sector is made up of local businesses, firms, that are entirely dependent upon external factors. For example, an airplane manufacturer builds and sells airplanes to companies in countries located throughout the world. Their business is dependent almost entirely upon non-local firms. It does not sell planes to families or households locally, so their business is very much dependent upon exporting their goods. Manufacturing and local resource-oriented firms, like logging or mining, are usually considered to be basic sector firms because their fortunes depend largely upon non-local factors. They usually export their goods. It should be noted that some service-related sectors such as tourism, parks, and entertainment are also considered as basic sector B. The non-basic sector, in contrast, is composed of those firms that depend largely upon local business conditions. For example, a local grocery store sells its goods to local households, businesses, and individuals. Its customers are locally based and, therefore, its products are consumed locally. Almost all local services, like dry cleaners, restaurants, and drugstores, are identified as non-basic because they depend almost entirely on local factors. Economic base theory assumes that all local economic activities can be identified as basic or non-basic. Firms that sell to both local and an export market must, therefore, be assigned to one of these sectors, or some means of apportioning their employment to each sector must be employed. Means of assigning firms to basic and non-basic sectors will be discussed in the various techniques outlined below. Economic base theory asserts that the means of strengthening and growing the local economy is to develop and enhance the basic sector. The basic sector is therefore identified as the engine of the local economy. The economic base technique is based on a simple causal model that assumes that the basic sector is the prime cause of local economic growth, that it is the economic base of the local economy. Economic base theory also posits that the local economy is strongest when it develops those economic sectors that are not closely tied to the local economy. By developing firms that rely primarily on external markets, the local economy can better insulate itself from economic downturns because, it is hoped, these external markets will remain strong even if the local economy experiences problems. In contrast, a local economy wholly dependent upon local factors will have great trouble responding to economic slumps.
Thanks more to watching my video. Please subscribe. Have a nice time. Bye bye.